So the week starts out pretty easy. Today is the 8th of July, and we have some really pretty. Have a beautiful asteroid called Pallas Athena going into Scorpio. Pallas Athena is a warrior goddess. I actually align with her quite a bit and use her energy often in my own chart because I have her in a very strategic place in my birth chart. And Pallas Athena in Scorpio is an energy that helps us kind of see things very clear. The murk that we've been in, the cloudiness that we often feel because Neptune is so active in the chart right now, that's going to dissipate just for about a day or two, while Pallas Athena in Scorpio means business. This is an energy where in the past year we've had a lot of things that were kind of revealed but then not revealed right away, and we're like, well, how is this really playing out? I'm not really sure. And then something else happens and we're like, what's true, what's not true, what is really going on here? Well, when Pallas Athena is in Scorpio, it's a really great time to get to the truth. It's a really great time for us to see things more clearly. And then on July 10th, it starts. We got the energy building. That starts on Wednesday. And the energy that starts to build this Wednesday is a very powerful energy. We're going to have Mars and Uranus come together in Taurus in the sky at an exact conjunction. They're going to be on top of each other. I don't know a better way to say it, on the 15th. But we have the energy building, and it's building very, very, very powerfully. There's a very potent energy because there's certain things that are in play here, and I'm going to go into them in detail because this is a really important time of change in our lives. It's also a really important time for change in the world globally, and I think that when you look at I can't seem to get my comments up. When you look at what's really going on in the world, and then you look at the astrology, it's uncanny how it just unfolds completely in the way it's supposed to, as far as what the cosmos show us and teach us. And that's one of the reasons why I delve so deeply into astrology and use it as a guide in my life, because I've found that the deeper I learn, the deeper I look at the planets and where they are and the aspects they create. It's such a dynamic thing. It's always moving. And when you do study that, and it takes a lot, that's why there are astrologers, because not everyone's going to be able to devote their life to something so detailed. But when you do really understand it, or have an astrologer that you go to regularly who helps you to interpret, it's a wonderful way to not only guide your life, but also be able to use energy that may take you by surprise or be unsettling in a very powerful way for your own self-development and growth. And that's why I practice evolutionary astrology, because it interprets the areas of your chart, planets, and aspects and things in that regard. And it changes all the time. Just as we evolve and develop, a lot of the time we're doing that in relation and in our subconscious conversations with the planets. So it's really pretty cool stuff. So I urge everybody to, tune in every week and see, where you can be at with this. Now, on the 10th, we have the sun in Cancer, and that is going to trine Saturn. And like I said, that is when the energy really starts to build. This is a good day for organization. It's a good day for advice, to ask for help to get things done. We're still in that Monday, Tuesday energy of getting things done a little bit on Wednesday, but then the energy does start to shift because we start to go towards that Mars-Uranus conjunction. Mars-Uranus conjunction is moving together. If you have any planets in the last degrees of Taurus, from I'd say about 20 degrees Taurus up to 20, I'm going to say 22, 23 degrees Taurus, up until the final points of Taurus, 29 degrees, you're going to be really affected by this in one way or the other. So now, the planet Uranus and Mars are coming together. Mars is moving towards Uranus, and Mars is our action. Uranus is sudden change. It's also liberation. It's freedom. It's awakening. It's with Mars coming against that planet Uranus and sneaking up on it. That is an acceleration of the energy. Normally, when we see Mars and Uranus come together in history, if we go back, as astrologers can, and look at a calendar that we call an ephemeris, which as the position of the planets, since we've been studying them, since we've been known they've been in the sky, you can look back at that and look at dates of when Mars and Uranus came together. And almost every time Mars and Uranus comes together, something happens that can be very altering to a society. It can be violent. It can be a life-changing moment. The assassination of McKinley was on a Mars-Uranus transit. other things that have happened have been on Mars Uranus transits that were extremely changing of a society or of a life or whatever. That's the macrocosm. And so right now we have very, very volatile energy, and this energy is accelerated and really made more potent. So for the next week or so, I'm going to say from July 10th on, all right, it exacts on the 15th, 16th, depending on where you live. But this is an energy that's also going to set the tone for the year, for the rest of the year. It is not lost on me that this particular transit of Mars conjuncting Uranus is happening right around the time in this country, in the United States, when the Republican convention is meeting. And I have a couple of videos on my YouTube channel, Zenkuda, where I analyze both Trump's chart and also Joe Biden's chart in two separate videos. And in Donald Trump's chart, the Uranus-Mars conjunction is happening right on his midheaven, or MC. It's also conjuncting personal planets of his. And that for him is a real signature of the way the world sees him and his status in the world going to be changing in a very big way. Now, that could be positive, it could be negative. But based on what we're seeing in the world and the amount of volatility and dynamic change, I don't think that's a signature that means it's going to stay the same. I've said all along, and a lot of people, don't agree with me, but it's almost like just an intuitive feeling I have. I don't think either Biden or Trump are going to be our next president. I just don't. I think there's going to be quite a shakeup, and it's already happening now. Things are changing that we never thought would be changing. So those critical days right around that Republican convention, around that 15th to 17th, building up now to that time, is really going to be very interesting to watch and see what happens. In your own personal lives, I would absolutely give the advice to kind of lay low a little bit. I wouldn't put myself in the line of fire. If you know anyone who is a volatile person, or someone who's just, extremely unhappy, or has an anger issue, or is someone that flies off the handle a lot, because this is an energy where people can lose their stuff. So we're building up to this energy come July 10th, because the sun in Cancer starts to trine Saturn in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is around the 19th, 20th degree of Pisces. We've talked quite a lot about Saturn's energy in Pisces. You can go back on other shows if you want and listen to them. On the 11th, we've got Venus in Cancer now, and that's trining Neptune in Pisces. Neptune in Pisces is also at the final degrees of the sign. So what's happening is the planets are lining up. Remember, the planets are always, coming into a different degree and pattern in their signs. The planets are moving constantly. The Earth is moving constantly. So right now we have a dynamic that's lining up for 2025 to be an unbelievably changeable year. And what I mean by that is that we have many, many planets right now in the final degrees of a sign. When planets are in the final degrees of a sign, there's 30 degrees in each sign in the zodiac. There's 12 signs. It's a, geometric circle. So there's 30 degrees to each sign. Pisces has 30 degrees. Libra has 30 degrees. So when you say, oh, my moon is at 22 degrees of Scorpio, it's towards the end of that sign being 30 degrees. Going after 30 degrees, you start 0 in another sign. So right now, lined up in the zodiac, we've got Neptune in Pisces in the final degree of Pisces. It's going to go retrograde. It's actually stopped almost right now in the final degree of Pisces. Will not go into Aries till next year. All right. 0 degrees of Aries is a complete restart for Pisces. Pisces is 165 year orbit, 165 years it takes Neptune in Pisces to go around the Earth. I think I said for Pisces to go around. I meant Neptune. 165 years for Neptune in Pisces to go around the Earth. Next year, it will complete its orbit and start over again at 0 degrees of Aries. So Neptune in Pisces in the final degrees is 165 culmination of energy, 165 years. So that's a big deal. Then we've got Pluto going back to the final degrees of Capricorn, 29 degrees. It popped into Aquarius the beginning of the year. The day that Pluto popped into Aquarius, that's when AI went viral. The Chat GPT went viral that day. So when we look at the solar system and we look at the astrology, we know it's playing out what we see in the world. So we've got Pluto in Capricorn at 29 degrees around there. It's, going back and forth, retrograding. We've got Neptune in the final degrees of Pisces. Now we've got Uranus approaching the final degrees of Taurus, and Mars is there meeting it up. Uranus is going to change signs in 2025. Neptune is going to change signs in 2025. Pluto's going to go back to Aquarius at the end of this year. And then I believe we have Saturn also changing signs in 2025. It's in the 20th degree of Pisces now, headed for the end of Pisces, popping into Aries next year. So when we have that many planets lining up now to go into different signs in 2025, that's a huge energy shift for each one of those things and what they represent. I know how we often feel in the collective, because I read the energy and watch it, when just the moon changes a sign, and it does that every 2 days. So can you imagine what it's going to be like when 5 planets all go into a different energetic signature in the next 12 months, beginning in 2025 to 2026? So what does all this mean for us? On a personal level, it means that this is a tremendous time of pivoting, of change, of stepping into new energy and allowing that to give us freedom and liberation from the old energy. On a macrocosm in the world, this speaks of a lot of change. You're going to see not only the structures change like they did in Capricorn Pluto era, which is now coming to a final end, where things just kind of decayed and disintegrated and, kind of like basically died, everything from school systems to political parties to, whatever you can think of, right? But now what's going to happen is we're going to be propelled into a future. So now is the time for us to clean out all the debris, really think about from a soul level, what do we want to do? What's really meaningful to us? And go from there, because next year is going to be a very accelerated and rapid change in our life. And if we don't have a good plan and we don't have a good roadmap and we haven't really checked in with ourselves to see where we really want to go, it's going to be wasted energy, and it may take us someplace in a very forceful, a very harsh way. It's like getting caught up in the wave. When you're ready for it and you know when to bop up and down and when to swim and when not to swim, it's harmony, it's flowing. But when it catches you by surprise and you lose your breath, you have a less of a chance to survive. So the energy builds this week, and then definitely by the 12th, the energy's really changed, because on July 11th, Venus is now in Leo. We've got Mercury in Leo. This is all the summer romance is heating up. When Venus goes into Leo and Mercury, who's now already in Leo, when that happens, when planets go from Cancer to Leo, it's a very big energetic shift, and we oftentimes feel it because Cancer is ruled by the moon and Leo is ruled by the sun. So when a planet has been in the sign of Cancer ruled by the moon, it's very different. It's dark and mysterious and watery and emotional. And then it pops into Leo ruled by the sun, and it's all of a sudden like the lights are on. We want to be seen. We're attractive. We want to be attracted to things. We have a magnetic appeal. We are like, the king of the jungle. We've got passion. So when Venus, the planet of all the things we value and love, pops into Leo, that's on July 11th, it changes the energy. Things heat up. Those summer romances heat up. Anything that's a hot topic is going to heat up. We're going to want to entertain and be entertained. We're going to want to go out and have socialization. We're going to be into the fire, right? We go from the cool, dark moon into the fire of Leo. So it's a very different energy. Now, the day after Venus goes into that beautiful fire energy, because now it's in Leo, it's in the first degree of Leo. It's opposing Pluto, who is still at the first degree, 0 degree almost, of Aquarius before it pops into the Capricorn retrograde. What does that mean? Well, when Venus is opposite Pluto, sometimes it can cause our desires to really rise from the surface. It can also be a situation where what we love and what we want is really not what we're finding ourselves obtaining, because what's good for us is in opposition to what we really want and what we really should have, right? Our soul's desire may be different from our heart's desire if we're stuck in ego. So that can be a difficult energy. But beginning on the 12th, the energy really starts to build. We've got Venus in Leo. It is opposite Pluto. We've got Uranus in Taurus. We've got Mars in Taurus going towards Uranus. We have all this fixed energy. So Taurus is fixed earth. Leo is fixed fire. This is like we're digging our heels in. We want what we want. We're not going anywhere. And that begins the energy of the Mars-Uranus conjunction. And it exacts July 15th. But by the time I think July 12th is Friday, July 15th is next Monday. It'll be interesting to hear all your stories. The energy builds and builds and builds. It's like people keep putting logs on the fire and logs on the fire and logs on the fire. But because it's fixed fire and fixed earth, it's like a grinding. It's like, you're going to really feel the tension in the air. This is an energy of trying to find the right word. It's very powerful. It's transformation. It's what happens when you keep putting logs on the fire. You get a bonfire, right? And you burn something down. Or you can really cook your food and heat your house, and it can be really, really constructive, right? So it's either destruction, construction. And that's the power of transformation. And that's where we have the choice. Whenever we're faced with something that's a really big choice or a tragedy, we have the ability either to find the constructive link in it or to let it burn down the house, right? And you're going to see this play out in the collective. So I want to just say hi to Ann Rothney and Sarah and Cheryl and Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, I'm glad you got back from vacay. Colleen is out here. Stephanie, love my Steffers. Aaron's here. Aaron just finished his job interview. Everyone sent him good juju, good juju, good juju. So this is very powerful change. And there's another added level to this and why it's so powerful, this Mars-Uranus. Now, Mars and Uranus come together every 2 years, but because now this is happening at the end of a sign where we have them making aspects to other planets at the end of signs, this is like really big change. This is like momentous rebirth, conflict turned into power. It can also be, on the positive note, very magical. Like, this is a very powerful, powerful thing. If you think about, a bonfire, or using the analogy of fire and earth, if you think about it, sometimes fire is used to burn something that's toxic or something that we no longer want to have, right? You would set fire to something to annihilate it if it's not good, right? So in adversity, we always grow stronger. It's up to us what we choose: construction, destruction, rebirth, death. But the other layer to this is Uranus and Mars are coming together in Taurus exactly on top of a fixed star, more fixed energy, called Algol. And it may seem obscure to you, but Algol is not an obscure fixed star at all. It's very well known among astrologers and in most of even mythological circles. In Greek mythology, Algol was correlated to Medusa. And if you know the myth of Medusa, that's the goddess with all the snakes for hair. Medusa was beheaded and then, grew this snakes out of her head. And if you think about it, it is a story of transformation, because the asteroid that I mentioned in the beginning of the show, Pallas Athena, in Scorpio right now, very dear to my heart, Athena. If you know the mythology, when Medusa was beheaded by Perseus, and her head was given to Pallas Athena, and Pallas Athena uses it as a sword, uses it to defend herself. So think of the mythology. Here we have someone's head being used, a very violent, very transformative thing, although she grew snakes and was able to become a warrior with that, right? Medusa. Pallas Athena used that as a defense for herself. So isn't that what we do with adversity sometimes, right? We learn from a mistake, we learn from a painful occurrence, and then we also learn how to self-protect and preserve, but we also know how to defend. I oftentimes think of the energy of Medusa and Pallas Athena being extremely linked to Joan of Arc. And I've talked about Joan of Arc quite a bit in my podcasts and in my blogs. And I just identify with beautiful Joan so much. I do believe that her and my energy is extremely entwined, and that I, aligned with her quite a bit, have been her. And Joan of Arc, everyone thinks of her as, a warrior princess charging into battle. But what you really have to think about with Joan is, why did she do that? She did that because she had such a belief that God was speaking to her, and she had such a fierce love of her people. That's Pallas Athena in Scorpio. And that is how this energy can be at the highest octave. We can learn from a shocking, sudden thing, what I always call a healing crisis, and we can use it to transform ourselves to become more love and more compassion and endure, right? Into valor and into a valiant thing. It's really an amazing energy. But in history, when we look at the fixed star Algol and wherever it comes into the chart, oftentimes it does signify a loss of power of some kind. And when we go back into the history of this transit of Mars Uranus and then add Algol in, many times when we've had a transit or a sky like this, people have come into loss of power, and leaderships have been changed. Coups have happened. Governments get thrown. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. And a lot of times, leaders will lose power in an energy like this, and others gain power. So there's, negative and positive in everything. That rebirth, that transformation, the conflict turned to power. Conflict turned to power. Rising again despite tragedy. We all have great power and find new purpose when we have to reinvent ourselves. Anyone who's gone through a painful breakup or a divorce or lost someone dear to them knows there's a reinvention process that happens. And that is so unbelievably beautiful. Painful as hell, but so beautiful. Because at the end of all of this rise of power and really, psychic, intuitive energy that comes forward in these times for us, it brings us to a place where we really are in our own authority and have our own agency. And so that's what this is all about. And this is the energy that we're really, really coming into now in 2024, 2025, and into 2026. The Uranus and Mars conjunction happens at exactly 26 degrees of Taurus. So if you have any planets in 26 degrees of a sign, it will impact you. If you have planets in Taurus, it will impact you. If you have planets in Scorpio, it's an opposition, So the energy really builds. This is tension. You're going to feel it. When this finally exacts, it's not like it happens where, boom, the world ends. This is an energy that stays with us a while. It's a gradual thing. It's like a seeding moment. Uranus and Mars is a seeding moment of activity. It's a release of tension, but we don't know what to do with it. We just know something's going to happen. We don't know what. That's what it feels like. When Mars Uranus come together, we can feel it. It's like, when you feel a rumble, something's going to happen, but you're not really sure what it is. That's this energy. And because it's Mars and Uranus, Mars is very physical. So this can also play out in the world with earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. But oftentimes when we see earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that, oftentimes it creates a new geography. Sometimes it is a good thing, right? So all this energy just keeps building and building and building. All these things, all these conversations, these crosstalk in the zodiac is like a flow of energy. It's like an open circuit. When we have those trines between the sun and Saturn and Venus and Neptune, which starts to build on the 10th into that 15th, 16th moment when Uranus and Mars come together with Algol, there's a harmonious flow of energy between those few planets that are trining, but it's an open harmonic. It's like, for those of you who do music, it's like a beautiful melody that's playing, but it has to come to a crescendo and somehow come apart. Because Mars and Uranus is an energy where something happens that's real. It's not fantasy. It's not flowing into imagination. It's like, boom, we're back in reality. And it happens in order for us to have more of our own agency and more of our own reality and more of an authority about where we're really supposed to go in our life. So it's pretty cool stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm not going to say all of it's going to be pleasant. It's going to be shocks. It could be seismic activity. This is opposing the sun of Joe Biden, which is health and physical vitality. which means that when that Mars Uranus, just like it's on Donald Trump's midheaven, redoing, reinventing, a sudden shift of status for him somehow, it's opposing Joe Biden's sun, which is our vitality, our life force. So it's going to, weaken that. Something's going to happen with that. So basically, in a nutshell, what I can tell you is something's going to happen. Don't know what it is, but we've got some big major changes coming our way.